As Simon said, a big part of our work in the last kind of 6 months has been working on a new kind of product which we hope will find a kind of a balance, fill a void if you like, between content that is highly personalised just for the individual, we're talking about social content here, and content that is kind of pushed to the masses through automation. And it's very much this kind of question of quality over quantity, engagement over reach, which I think is a really interesting area. So I want to start just by asking if anyone knows what our average attention span is in 2016. Don't ask me how they get this figure. 8.25%, which means three things. One, how on earth do you grab people's attention in 8.25 seconds? How am I going to keep your attention for 5 minutes? And slightly more depressing is that we now have a shorter attention span than a goldfish. So why is that? It's not just the amount of devices we have, it's the fact that we are constantly on our devices. And on social, obviously, there is so much noise that you have to cut through. And like it or not, we're kind of guilty of engaging with content that we're all trying to fight against, the kind of unwanted competition. So these are kind of some images that I found that were the most tweeted or shared images of 2015. And it's quite sad. They're either grim or they're scary or they're very depressing. So what do we do? How do we combat this? So personalisation is an area, as I say, that we've been looking at. How do you create content that's going to not only kind of engage people, it's going to want them to interact, it's going to want them to stay with that brand. And a lot of this is about when you engage, what do you get back? What kind of reward you get back? There's been a lot of social media campaigns in the last few years that have been quite time consuming. When you're trying to create content for the individual and react to them, it takes quite a lot of time, and obviously it's hard to scale. So going back to the old Spice adverts where people would tweet in and they would actually get a response from a talent or some kind of celebrity that actually responds directly to their question. We've seen it with Zippo and 888. It's quite a popular mechanic. But if you're wanting to do that for thousands of people who you're expecting to engage around your hashtag potentially in a short period of time, how do you do it? But we know that consumers want this. We know there's a big trend towards personalisation. I think last year was dubbed the year of personalisation. We know that people expect it these days. There's so much content out there. People are used to seeing ads directed at them. People are used to seeing their names in ads. And I think although, like a lot of people, may be wary of spamming and their digital identity, there's a generation coming through that are just living with it. And so it's one of those kind of balances about how far you push that personalisation and how far you push it in terms of scale. And of course, if you can create personalised content that creates a positive interaction, then it obviously builds that brand affinity and builds that genuine kind of one-to-one relationship with your customer. And I think that's kind of the holy grail for a lot of marketers today. And this is versus automation. So automation is great, you know, we're used to it, we're never going to see the end of it. We're seeing like ad platforms, pop up now in every kind of social media platform, and they're becoming more and more effective in terms of reach. And of course, it's all about creating one piece of content or a suite of content that you're pushing to certain demographics based on past behavior. Problem with it, as we all know, it doesn't always work. It doesn't always hit the mark, and you don't feel you have that kind of one-on-one interaction. That kind of one-size-fits-all doesn't always bring kind of the interaction you want. And it's interesting just talking about customer service. I think it's particularly key for customer service. None of us like to be on hold for hours. None of us like to struggle to find a phone number on a website. If there's a way in which you can get content that you want that feels more personalised and not spammy or creepy, it's something that I think a lot of businesses are striving towards. And as I say, it's a fine balance. If people do feel like they're being targeted and it's not content they wish to see, they will avoid brands, and they will stop following Facebook feeds, they will stop following Twitter feeds. We see it more and more. And I say that the automation is cost effective. Well, I think towards the end of the last year, Twitter announced their Twitter Moments ad platform, and the kind of prices that big corporations could be paying for that platform could be as much as £1 million. And we know that for a Snapchat campaign, you're looking at £500,000 just to promote a trended post. Promoted trend post on Twitter will cost you £200,000 a day. So not all companies can pay this money. So what other options are there to try and create content that would engage people and does have the ability to scale to a degree, but more importantly, create that one-on-one engagement? And I kind of think there is like an area here where people can feel. There's technology now is getting to the point where new technology and social can blend in quite interesting ways, and one of the tools that we've been working on, Redberry, does just that. But I think more than that, rather than creating content and pushing it to people who you assume want to see it, I think it's far more interesting to create content that actually engages people and asks people to actually do something. Interact, get back some kind of valuable reward that's personal, that you've been involved in, you're far more likely to share it. And by doing that, the actual consumer becomes the publisher. And I think that's the key, to try and find a way in which you can create content that's engaging and lets the user actually amplify it. And for kind of small, medium businesses, that's, I think, kind of the way to go. And the ability to plug into so many APIs these days, it makes it quite an interesting area. We know that Twitter's more open than Facebook, but we feel that's going to change. These are just some examples, really simple examples over the last year where people's content or people have kind of either been embedded in the content or they've kind of created the content themselves. I think with any of these kind of activities on social, it's got to be something that's relatively easy, quick to do. Going back to the whole kind of attention span, 8.25 seconds, well, obviously that's a bit ridiculous, but still, you want something you can do quickly, you want to get a reward back immediately, and that reward has to provide you the social currency to share quickly. Just as we were talking about that kind of window of time that people are there on Twitter, you've got to capitalise on that moment. This is a very, very simple campaign. For the Rugby World Cup, people supporting England would use the hashtag #WearTheRose and tweet in their pictures. They would use those pictures in a variety of ways. They'd be on big screens outside the grounds, they'd be inside the grounds on screens, and they projected them on the O2. And then some selected users would get that image there as an animated GIF tweeted straight back, or within a certain time frame. Really kind of simple idea. All you need to do is take a picture and send it in. Taste the Feeling, or in actual fact this specific campaign, which is part of Taste the Feeling, is called Gift the Feeling. This is actually running at the moment. Slightly different approach here. This is about people creating content themselves or being part of the content. This is a very, very, very kind of stylish, really simple idea where people can hover over any one of those dots to change that video background, type in whatever they want, you create an animated GIF literally within a matter of seconds that they can then post to their social networks or download. And as I say, it's an area that we've been looking at. We work a lot with kind of movie studios and TV companies who have content, who have video content. And so a campaign that we ran towards the end of September when we launched this particular product, EchoMany, was about how can we take social content, use it in a really nice, effective way with rich media video assets and share straight back to the user. So this campaign for 20th Century Fox for The Martian was based around 3 TV spots where they used the hashtag Bring Him Home. The client were able to go straight onto the EchoMany platform, monitor the feed of all the incoming tweets, simply select any positive accolade comments that would then be embedded straight into the trailer and tweeted straight back. So this is just simply by embedding the tweet handle and then embedding the tweet into part of the scenery. So it's not, it's quite a simple execution. This was a surprise and a reward campaign. People didn't know what they were going to get. We work very closely with Twitter on this, obviously stay within their kind of like privacy and their fair use guidelines. But since we've done this campaign, I mean, and the great thing to say about this, it not only engaged people and got really good engagement, we're talking about 14% engagement, which is really fantastic for Twitter, but we were finding that people were actually responding. So there were actual conversations kind of going on. You would actually be sending a direct tweet back to someone, and maybe that person hasn't seen it, but one of their friends has, and they're replying it and saying, where are you, you've got to see this. Everything we got back was really positive. And then kind of taking it that stage further was another campaign we did for Sherlock. So this is for the one-off special Abominable Bride. And this idea of embedding people's content into an asset really is really an interesting idea, and I think there's different approaches. Often it's actually the nature of the message. Is it actually a talent message? Is it someone famous actually delivering you a message and seeing your tweet or seeing your image embedded in some way? Often it's just the creative that can really kind of create that impact. So this was a scene that was taken straight from The Abominable Bride, which was just a perfect fit for what we happened to be doing with the tool at the time. If anyone watches Sherlock, you know you get all these graphic overlays when Benedict's in his crazy mind palace. So this was an overlay of Watson receiving a telegram. So of course it was a perfect opportunity for us to use a tool where on Twitter they put out a call to action for fans to tweet in their telegram. Again, they didn't know what they were going to get back. But this is an example of what was tweeted back within like 2 to 3 minutes. So that is actually someone's tweet. So they got that only 2 to 3 minutes after they tweeted it. The nice thing about that is influencers get involved. It gives them the ability to actually create something for, in that particular case, they got Mark Gatiss involved. So it's a really interesting tool, and I think it kind of perfectly shows what can be done if you take technology and you take what you can do on certain social platforms. And I say for me, trying to cut through that automated route but still create kind of engaging content that allows people that social currency to share. There's some really kind of exciting opportunities. And the interesting thing about this particular tool, we're kind of really interested in ways in which it can be used potentially for customer service. The ability for people to want to find something out, they get something back which is personal, answers their question and helps boost that brand affinity, and more importantly obviously saves money. We know, I think it costs £6. I think the amount of money that it costs to respond to an individual for customer service, it's as much as £6. So anywhere when you've got a large organisation you can cut those costs. And I think going back to what we were just talking about earlier in terms of the amount of people on Twitter using customer service, I know for a fact, and this is something that I've only just kind of jumped on in the last 6 months, if something goes wrong on any appliance I've got, if I've got any issue now, I go straight on Twitter. I go straight onto the Twitter account because they see it, and if they don't deal with it, everyone's seen it. And it's amazing how quickly they do get back. However, if they got back with something that was actually kind of more personal, where they're using your content in an interesting way, I think there's real opportunities. So hopefully that isn't too long. And that's me without a beard, probably about 10 years ago. That's it.
A couple of minutes if there are any questions.
Yeah, I've got a question. I think the automated responses are great, and it gets people's engagement and it makes them feel that they've had something personalised. But everyone really knows that it's automated. And in the other example where you have, like they project your picture onto the Millennium Dome or whatever it is, they have to curate that and select that. So they can't possibly do everybody. They might have the window to do 100 images, and there might be 2 million people who tweeted who didn't get it on there. Do these, when they run such a campaign, do they run the risk of alienating some of their people, and do they even know when they've alienated people?
This is very much kind of part, we always see a campaign like this as part of a bigger social media marketing campaign. So where, as I say, typically the examples I've shown when you're looking around kind of TV spots or trader spots where they know there are eyes on that trader, they're just trying to jump on that activity. But the key thing about this is yes, I know I can totally see the argument. You can kind of say, well, it's quite gimmicky. You're just putting your, but it's the results for us, and it's the engagement, and it's something we keep coming back to. The amplification of this kind of content is good, but it's the engagement which is more interesting to us. So we're finding that with this kind of content, in a recent campaign we did, 100% of people who received one of these tweets responded, they replied, and it often wasn't just them, it was their friends. It created a conversation, and when you have that conversation and when you have that account uplift, so we've been seeing account uplift about 60% when we're doing this kind of activity, it then creates the platform for them to be able to push their other content, push their other messaging. So it's always, I would say it's always part of a wider campaign. There is the opportunity to use the platform in a more automated fashion, where people can use a hashtag, and by use of a hashtag, they're automatically potentially entered into a competition, and then we can then send back personalised content depending upon the outcome. There's the other interesting thing with the tool is storytelling. So the idea that there are lots of kind of with this move to TV content online, BBC Three, iPlayer, second screen narratives that are playing out alongside TV shows, the ability to kind of create your own stories or decide your own stories that's been around for a while. This tool could be used again to actually decide, by tweeting, you decide which way you want a particular narrative to go. So as well as that, creating that kind of one hit, that quick kind of like piece of social currency that you can share, that can amplify, increase your engagement on that Twitter platform. There's also the opportunity for it to run as part of a longer, more deeper kind of campaign. It's a very long-winded answer, isn't it?
Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks, Rob.